How do we QA? What styles and coding practices bug us? Find out in this episode of System.Debug.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that, please.
Y'all ever gonna get sick of that? I'm just curious.
No, well, he just ruined it for me.
Sometimes you gotta make fun of BJ, man. Sometimes you just gotta do it.
All right. So before we get into the old tabs versus spaces debate tonight, want to do a couple of recaps of quick upcoming events. We do have the Chicago Salesforce World Tour, June 15th. Trailhead X coming up so quick now, everybody. June 28th through the 29th. I'm not sure if the pre-reg is still open or not. Oh, pre-reg is still open, but I don't know if we're going to be able to do the lower price tickets or not yet still. However, get out Trailhead X. Just Google it. You'll find the website and make sure to register for it. See me there, hopefully. Also coming up, we've got Midwest Dreamin' still, August 10th through the 11th, followed by Witness Success the following weekend, same city. Peter Coffey once again going to be talking at Midwest Dreamin', and you can find everything else you need to know on Sharon Pix's blog. We have a link down below. I made sure that this time.
Yep.
Before the episode.
Before
the episode. So while you're down there liking and subscribing to our channel in this video, make sure you check out that blog to find out what's coming into your area. I don't know what this was. Like,
that was
karate chopping.
I thought that was something. You were like, "What's coming into your area?"
That's right.
I thought that was going a different way. Anyway.
All right. So that's pretty much all that we've got like in store event-wise that I know of. If you guys post below, we can always make sure that we disseminate that information as well.
That's they got Chicago World Tours coming up in June.
Right, June 15th.
So if you're around there.
That could have also been bad.
And if you said that, I was totally spacing. I apologize.
No. I was. BJ said disseminate, and I was like, that could have been.
Oh.
In a split second, that could have been so bad if he had it.
Well, I didn't even know if I actually used the word correctly or if it was a word, but I was going for it, and I said it with confidence.
Hey, man, it was outstanding.
RJ immediately made me feel like I'd done everything wrong.
Yeah, that's what I do.
So
you're gonna give that poor guy a conscience, man. You're just gonna have to come back to Wisconsin and work with me, Brian. That's the way it's gonna be. Because
we were just talking about that actually moments ago.
Moments ago, surprised. No, you guys were talking about that.
Not really gonna happen. Love map anything.
Yeah, gotcha.
No, he said no. We talked about how much we hate the north and snow and
the snow
and how cold it is.
Yeah, just stupid, pointless cold.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's like in your veins. Like I know Teddy was complaining riding with me the other day when we were coming back from Charlotte, and he looks at my thermostat in my car and he goes, "Does that say 62 degrees?"
Yeah.
Can we bring that up more to Kenya weather?
Yeah,
that's word for
like
word what
normal
he said.
people weather. You know?
Yeah.
Would you say normal people weather?
Yeah, just something comfortable. You know, he blasts the AC.
Yeah,
to like
I also
62.
blast
Like,
the AC. Don't ride with me, Teddy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I keep it like 68 though.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's the question: if you blast the AC, are you wearing a sweatshirt then in the car while you're driving?
No.
Okay, so that's good. I was in a car recently in a very warm climate, and they were driving, and they had the AC blasted at like 62. It's an 85-degree day out, so my buddy and I were wearing, t-shirts and stuff. We get in this car, and it's freezing, and the driver and passenger are wearing sweatshirts, and I'm like, what is the point?
Yeah, that's
Just take
kind
off the sweatshirt, and then we can all be comfortable. But no, we were freezing. That makes me laugh.
Yeah, that's kind of silly.
It's kind of a good segue. It's kind of a pet peeve. So
I know. I was thinking the same thing.
And
see what I did? I didn't even mean that.
Yeah,
no, I totally did. I totally did.
Do your chop. Segue. That's your new thing now.
Yeah.
So what's first, Brian?
All right. So first off, let's talk about quality assurance. Let's talk about how different teams, different companies actually go about making sure that their software is kind of...
By QA, you mean like pre-QA, right? Like not actual QA, but like your smoke tests you're doing before you send it off to QA.
Yes, exactly. So as a developer, what is your involvement in QA? What's your teammates' involvement in your QA, right? Obviously, the first stop is going to be you.
Yeah.
But it's very, very hard for a developer to kind of test their own code because we've written it in a manner where we've clicked the same thing in the exact same order every single time, like a user should do.
Yeah.
And it didn't break it.
Like the perfect user should do every single time.
Right.
So so that's where we get hiccups. That's where I find myself finding the largest number of bugs when I actually send it off to QA is, well, what about the imperfect user? What about what if somebody takes this number box and just hits escape 4,000 times in 1 second on this box? What happens?
Right.
I have no idea.
Or if they put a number in there. Like so many times I'll code for stuff and not even assume like, well, I mean, they're asking for a name. Who's going to put the name 651AB? You know, and then you realize, oh, everybody's putting it into that.
That's the way they do it.
It's a popular name these days. I'm actually going to name one of the twins 651AB. The other one's going to be 652AB.
This one would be 651AC.
No.
Oh, because we're doing like Salesforce ID increments.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. There you go.
It's going to have 15 digits and an 18-digit version of it.
Yeah. Both of my kids are going to have 18 character versions of their names.
It's going to be the 18 character nickname and then, the 15 character name.
No, the 15 character is the nickname. It's
yeah,
by the way, now that he's making noise. So we got Teddy here today.
Yeah, Teddy's here.
Teddy's on the show.
I'm here.
Hello, Teddy.
Again.
Teddy does things.
One of our favorite programs.
I'm glad to be back here.
We're glad to have you back, Teddy.
Yeah.
Now that we've got that out of the way. So,
Right.
Teddy.
I'm like, okay to have you back.
Just okay? That's fine.
No, Teddy, I'm
I'm
kidding. I
okay
love
with
you, man.
that.
We love Teddy at Map
Yeah.
Anything. He's another one of our star employees at Map Anything here. Teddy is working on our
Gold
live
star.
implementation.
Live.
Yeah, he's killing it right now. And
Cool.
until people erase his code.
And by killing it, we don't mean breaking everything.
Just like erasing portions of it, not the full thing, just single lines.
Just when.
Just to drive him nuts?
Yeah.
So that's like another good point, though. Is it whose job as a developer is it to make sure, for instance, when you were doing repository-based peer programming, it's definitely one of the roles of the programmer to go in and check your commits, right?
I think the onus falls on the person though who's doing so. Teddy makes a commit. I'm next in line, right? I should always at that point say, whoa, before I make all my changes hard and try to push them, and this Git is great at doing this anyway, but before I make all my changes hard and push all of them, I need to go see what's changed now. Like, hey, Brian, did you change something? BJ, did you change something? Teddy, did I change something? Who changed a thing? Now I have to go pull all of it back down, grab it, make sure all my stuff didn't break anyone else's stuff. Then I'm okay to push, and make sure that when you're doing certain things in Git, like let's say you have a commit on the same line that I have a commit on in the same file, right? Whoever pulls that or whoever does the last change to that should make sure that those commits are like spotless, basically. That's my thought.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the git diff command.
Yeah.
So I use that all the time to see what changed, what did I change? Is that supposed to be there before I push? Yeah, just to avoid those errors.
Yeah, because those just pop. Just like we were just talking about, we were making fun of Teddy because he lost some code. He didn't lose it. Somebody else lost it for him, but that's just how it goes sometimes.
So the point being that it's quality assurance doesn't just stop with the code that you're writing now, but the code that somebody else wrote or overwrote for that matter as well.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the whole process. It's not just the code. It's the whole process. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, where this kind of gets into a more debatable aspect, it comes into a lot of times peer review, right? And practices can change company to company. And I don't mean, obviously, a jQuery select statement is going to be the same here as it is anywhere else. However, what changes is how the syntax and the order of the syntax and where you're putting a lot of things. And that a lot of times can create a lot of debates. It's the old, for those of you who watch Silicon Valley, it's that tabs versus spaces debate. I know Ryan is a 4-spacer.
I am. Well, I need to clarify that. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, what?
Good code should be shallow. So 4 spaces, you shouldn't be indenting like 2, 3, 4, 20 times. Like you should be indenting maybe 2 to 3 times max, because good code should be very shallow code.
Okay.
So for basically this kind of tears down the whole 2 or 4 spaces. But then on the other side, if you just have an IDE or anything that's going to convert everything to spaces no matter what, then you don't have any kind of issues at all. So no matter what I do, if I like tabs, spaces, this, that, the other, I always convert to spaces.
That's the one right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I have my editor set to a tab stop of 4. So every time I tab, it moves in 4, but when I save it, it converts everything to spaces.
Always, yeah. It just makes it easier because then it doesn't matter who you are or where you are. You can keep going through the code without it looking all. Because some people, I forgot where this came up for me last. I think it was in like the Microsoft SQL editor or something. One of those stupid things. I was like, how the heck did they do this? How did they? Why would they do this? And it turns out that it was just 2 spaces versus 4, and it or 4 spaces
they did
versus
2 tabs. And,
they did 2. Yeah, exactly. They did like 2 space tabs, and it made everything look completely crazy. And I was like, who wrote this? This is insane. But then I realized, it's because my thing was turned on to like 1 4 space tab instead of 2. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get rid of all this right off the bat. I'm going to take this and I'm going to convert everything to spaces no matter what. And that fixed everything.
Yep.
But see, I think this comes down to a matter of your IDE and how you've set it up, right? Or your text editor and how you've set it up. To me personally, I don't care if it's 4 space. I don't care if it's 2 space. I don't care if it's tabs or spaces. Personally, all that matters to me is that it flows, is that it's beautified code, right? Like formatted so that it's in a readable
That's the problem
way
though.
for me.
Certain editors, if you don't change everything to spaces, it gets all and it doesn't look beautiful anymore. No matter it doesn't matter which way they do it.
See, that's something I liked about Eclipse. Eclipse had a command, I think it was like Control F or something like that, that just automatically went through the whole script and reformatted it for you. And not all text editors have that.
A good number of them do.
One of those things where it's such a beautiful command when you can find it. And you're just like, I really don't care what comes in. I'm just going to hit this.
Yeah, I've had situations where I've opened a tabbed file, right? And in one editor, it's fine because the tabs is 4 space and I'll look at it, it's great. But then I open it in VI, and for whatever reason, my VI tab stop is set at 8. So then it's, 2 tabs is all of a sudden it's like 16 spaces in or something like that. And I'm, holy crap. I mean, it really wreaks havoc. Yeah. So especially if you're somebody who likes to try to keep it to 80 characters wide before you break a line, which I don't always do, admittedly. But
I don't think anybody does it exactly on, but it's kind of the idea, like, don't get too crazy. Keep your code shallow, keep your lines short, keep everything nice so that if some crazy person with like a friggin' 800 by 600 resolution comes along, like, I got to fix this code on my cool CRT. They're not necessarily being interrupted by the length of your code.
Right.
This makes me wonder how languages like Python, where indents matter. I wonder how they do it,
See, I love Python. Now you're talking. Now you're talking
Ryan language.
Yeah, the reason I like Python though is because it gets rid of all that other ceremony, and I'm sure we'll hit into that in a little bit though. But like, you don't need the stinking semicolons, you don't need the braces because it's all indented. What it makes for me, and maybe I'm just curmudgeonly, is very readable code because it's white space indentable and all. I mean, it just looks. It looks like a haiku, man. It's a thing of beauty, right? So, I mean, it's just, And the thing with Python, though, is like it will recognize if you are in an editor that's not really doing any sort of conversion of tabs to space or anything. If you tab on one line, but you 4 space on another line, Python will give you an error in most cases. They'll be like, this indentation doesn't match.
That's good.
So, but I'm a huge fan of Python.
Huh?
Do you play with a lot of Python?
I do play with it a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah. And the whole point of indents is to have really good looking code.
So do you use semicolons?
Python code looks pretty good.
Do you use semicolons in Python?
I don't.
You don't?
No.
Okay, but it's optional, right?
I don't think you put them at all. I've never ever.
I've put them sometimes and they do work. But
I've never tried.
Yeah.
But that's why I was asking you earlier today if you were specifically for or against semicolons.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, that's why I was asking. I made an assumption.
Yeah, maybe I misanswered your question then, but so Python, I mean, they're always optional. So, I mean, if it's always optional, then I'm not going to do it. But if your language like Java or whatever says you must end your line with a semicolon. Oh, unless it's the last line of a function or something. There's languages like that. It's like, I'm going to put one there anyway.
I see what your optional meant now. I thought you meant optional as in you can use them or not use them, not you can use them or not use them in certain cases.
So do you not need the curly braces then either?
No, sir.
Are they optional?
I've never seen Python code with curly braces. Will it compile?
I have no idea.
Compile.
You don't use
curly Python.
All the indents are the ones that determine where a block of code ends.
Yep.
Like you're inside an if statement, and if you indent out of that, then you're outside that if statement.
But can you run, so if you try to run a Python script with curly braces in there and indents, what's that going to do? Do you know? I've never tried.
That's going to break.
Is it?
Yeah, because I think the only time you really use curly braces is when you're defining a dictionary. Right. And maybe when you're doing a lambda function, not a lambda function, just a lambda. I can't remember now, which is a lot like a closure in Ruby, right?
Does Python?
Okay. Does
Python ternary? I'm starting to see a trend here, Ryan. Does Python ternary?
I think you can do a Python ternary, but I never do a ternary. I hate ternary. Would you like me to?
I've been dying for this. Okay, so just a recap. Okay, we were talking about what to talk about for this episode, and Ryan said we should do it on this because I hate ternaries. And all I could think is we're stopping this debate now because I can't wait to have it on air. Why?
For me,
what's wrong with you, man?
What's your beef, man?
For me, and this is just me, and I'm sure I will get hate mail and death threats and everything, but for me, it's purely a readable thing. If I'm going into somebody else's code and I'm just scanning, right? And if there is an essential if-then that's happening somewhere in the code, I write my code such that it's obvious that, hey, I'm making a decision right here at this line because it's blocked out with an if-then and there's a block, right? You can totally see it and it's braces. Versus on a ternary, that crap happens normally on one line, right? And so that one line, hang on. That one line looks like just a normal piece of code when you're just trying to glance, right? So you're trying to debug some code that you didn't write and you're going through and you're like, okay, they're making a decision here somewhere. Where is this decision being made? And I'm scanning through hundreds of lines of code. I'm going to miss that ternary the first 2 or 3 times. But if it's in the middle of, if it's got a carriage return before and you start your if statement and then a carriage return after and it's got your little curly braces, I know that there's something being called out right there. And I can go, oh, there's my if. That's what I'm looking for.
See, so, I can respect that. I totally.
That's the only reason. Because I mean, yeah, it's great. There's something to be said for concise, quick, short bits of code. But I think people get themselves in a lot of trouble. And I always try to think of myself as like I'm expendable. If I ever leave and they find that junior guy, he's going to come behind me and have to maintain that. And I don't want him to spin his wheels for an hour and a half looking for this ternary when it's like, oh, right there's an if. I can see that and it's readable. So for me, it's all about being readable.
What about single line, basically setting a variable, kind of what BJ was about to say. So if you, let's say you have like some variable XYZ that you just need to set to a string or maybe some, maybe null or maybe, or
like when you set
to set it to another property, right? But you need to see if that property exists first.
Yeah.
And then you're going to either set it or set a default value. What about that?
I go back and forth with that because I know I've done it myself, particularly with Booleans. Like, Boolean, is this true equals, and then the condition, right? Yeah. I go back and forth on that one. Generally, I don't. Generally, I make it explicit, easy, readable again, where I'm like, if it's this, it's true. If it's this, it's false, rather than all on one line.
Gotcha.
But I can get by it if the variable is named in such a way that it's obvious that that's what's going on, right?
Right.
Yeah.
My problem with ternary only comes when they do complex embedding. When
you're talking about like nested ternaries.
Yeah, when people are doing nested ternaries, that's to me is like when you've officially broken out of the reason to even use a ternary operator. Like at that point, it needs to kind of be more, because that's to me like when it becomes unreadable.
Yeah, at that point, I don't care whose code it is at that point. If they've nested a ternary in there, I'm going to delete that line and make it readable. Because if I'm the one who has to come back and troubleshoot it later, sorry. But that, again, that's just me. My eyes don't, I mean, they'll glaze over the minute I start trying to unwind that. It's like going into some Salesforce formula fields where they're just tons of ifs, right? And if you're doing the word type stuff and the ands and the ors and all that inside of there, that gets really hard to unwind too. So yeah, I hate unwinding that stuff.
Hold up, Teddy. How do you feel about ternaries?
Oh, yeah.
We need to ask Teddy, man.
Yeah,
I think ternaries are pretty neat as far as, you know, you have this one line of code, right? But to Ryan's point, to kind of build on his point, as far as your code readability and also long-term stability for it, you probably don't want to use a ternary operator, just because if you have more conditions to add, for example,
for
your
later,
if statement, you're relying on having a very simplistic condition, right?
Yeah.
For your if statement. So if you need to tack onto that in future, then an if statement works better than a ternary operator, right? But also, just as Ryan said, sometimes it's hard to see when you're reading through lines of code, and you can easily miss that ternary operator, not know what's going on. I think the if statement works better. So I'm a big fan of the ternary operator just because I can do things in one line. But I do know in the back of my mind that this could go really bad at some point in the future. Go real bad. You know? Yeah.
Oh man, that's Teddy for you, turning on the youth of today. Let's turn this back. No ternaries.
Right.
Yeah, I never really fully adopted them, and I just think they're a little harder to read. So
when they came out, whatever language I was working in when they came out at that time, I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be nice.
I just remember the first time I started seeing them, I was going, what does the question mark mean? I've never seen that in code before.
What?
The question mark and the colon.
Yeah. So it's very, I mean, the ternary operator, I mean, my disdain for it is the exact reason why I chose Python over Ruby, right? Because you've got Python is a very explicit, spelled out language, and you can get really concise and tight with it, but like it runs rampant in Ruby. People seeing how much, just like the old Perl things were like, how much can I do in a one-line Perl script? That seemed to kind of find its way into the Ruby world. And I was just, I had enough. I'm like, I want something I can actually read. So that's why I adopted Python over Ruby in the end.
So I think we got one more time for like one more kind of question. Curly braces. Is he still talking?
No, I'm not still talking.
Oh, sorry.
Stop.
I forget. Sorry, screen, I forget.
Man.
You're watching the delay.
Yeah, watching the delay. Curly braces. Right? Do we drop them at the end? Like, are we putting them underneath our
I
conditional statement, or do we put it at the end of the conditional statement? So
sorry.
Where do you put them?
I put them at the end.
Always?
I do not like my curly braces on their own line, but I can totally get behind that because that's what I did when I first started out. And
I think that's what everyone did when they first started.
I can see the argument for saying, okay, that curly brace lines up with that curly brace. Okay, I'm good. But anymore, I do not like to see that, and I don't know why. I have no other real reason for it. It's just at one point I made the switch, and I haven't looked back. I've got no good reason for it, one way or the other.
Mine's code folding. Like, I like it. I was a big fan of always leaving it at the very end, kind of like you're doing now. And it wasn't actually until I started working here that I dropped the curlies. And it was mainly because up until that point, I'd never seen if conditionals so freaking long before. That's actually
part of the problem.
You know, that you have to scroll all the way to the end, and you're kind of like,
problem, man.
You know, you've checked for nulls on 8 million JSON objects, and then all of a sudden you're like, I just need to know where this curly brace ends. Like, literally, where does this function actually start? You know?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like where I put it, because now with code folding, it's a lot easier to just kind of like see exactly.
I like to zip it up at the end of my conditionals are very short usually. I don't have a lot of crazy stuff in Node, but I like it at the end of the line.
Yeah.
Because that's how I do everything else, you know? So my curiosity is why some people want to do things like some variable equals, and then they start a curly to make like a JSON object. They start a curly, then they go to the next line, then they do all their stuff. then they break the curly. So they have one lonely curly instead of two when they're making JSON objects. But then when they do if statements, they have two lonely curlies.
Yeah,
Are you
I've seen both.
me? Is that what you're doing
No,
right now?
I'm just saying if you're gonna do something, you should probably be consistent. Not you specifically, but a person in general. And I feel like Brian's like coming out here to debate this right now.
Oh, he's getting shot.
He's throwing stuff.
Because I pointed this out to Brian. He's like, "I know, shut up." And I'm consistent. I'm just saying I'm consistent. That's all.
RJ's consistent.
You should be consistent with it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I was waiting for Brian. I was waiting to see if he did something. I knew he was going to.
So we want to know what bugs you about code. What are some of the practices that may not break the code, but you still don't like to see it? What are things you realize you may be the only person doing and everyone keeps complaining about it, but you don't know why? We want to know. Please comment below. Remember to like, subscribe. We want to thank you again for tuning in. You can follow all of us on Twitter. You can follow Teddy here.
Teddy Cheesy.
Teddy Cheesy.
We'll include that.
We'll
Yeah, we'll throw that
make
at
sure
the
to put
bottom.
it. It's not spelled how you think it is.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
I have so many more opinions on this, though.
Do you?
Yeah.
Hey, man, who's the one who always says we don't have enough topics to talk about?
It's this is just a one topic. I've got a ton of stuff to talk about on the one topic.
And we should definitely make sure that we have a follow-up episode, and we want to hear some other opinions before we do that.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
So you can follow Ryan at Life with Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Follow RJ, the infamous RJ.
That's true.
And you can follow me, US Brian 28. You can also find us all on system.debug.com. Remember to send us emails. If you're looking for a job, please send us an email because we actually have quite a few that have come in, and we're just trying to help out. So if you're looking for something, email us. Let us know what you're looking for and what some of your skill sets are, and maybe we can try to match you up with some of them. System.debug@gmail.com is where you can reach us for those.
And we also have a lot of recruiter friends, especially Hunter just came up here the other day and he was looking around. He was like, "Hey, man,
Salesforce
How you
jobs
guys
are
doing?
seriously in demand. So if you're a developer on Salesforce or looking to be a developer on Salesforce
or anything."
Yeah, even admin jobs, we're getting plenty of those coming in as well.
I meant like any platform. Node,
yeah.
any AWS stuff.
Yeah.
Oh
Any
yes,
technology.
Node and AWS definitely as well.
Yeah, hit us up.
Let us know, and we'll try to match you guys up with who we can as soon as we can.
Cool. Next show 2 weeks, right?
Next show is in 2 weeks.
Cool. Do we
I
even
think.
have a topic yet?
No, we don't. Mainly because the last two episodes we
watch.
said we were going to talk about starting up your own startup as a developer, and then we lost our guest both
Yeah,
episodes.
Schmlarchris is the hardest two humans to get to stick around.
So I'm not going to promise and tell you guys what our next episode's going to be. You'll have to watch.
Yeah, you may see Schmlarchris, you may not see Schmlarchris. Depends on
Schmarker. Is that
yeah.
like what Hollywood's doing with people dating now, Benifer and all that stuff? Schmarchris is what we're calling him?
Schmlarchris. Yeah, he's
Schmarchris.
two people.
Yeah,
But
Brad,
they
you
are
gotta know more.
actually one human put together, but separated at the same time.
It's
They go to the
symbiotic.
bank together.
It's a
They have
symbiotic
one
relationship.
account, but they go to the bank together.
Hey, before we go, we just had a question come into the channel, and
What's up?
if we actually had our producer watching the channel, he might have been able to.
Ryan is blowing it. All right. So
Yeah.
how do you prefer to format SOCL queries within Apex? For example, if you have a longer query, do you let it ride on one line or break it up by different clauses?
Snap. This is a really good question.
Yeah.
This is
I was
a really
waiting to
good
get into
question.
this because I have opinions here too. Yeah.
Okay, so if it's a really long query, I would much prefer you break it up because that's going to make it much easier for me if you have your fields in one section and then your where clause statements stacked underneath it. That's how I prefer to read that later on down the line, especially because if I'm going to add more fields, I know where I can add them
Mhm.
without getting into your where statements.
I also, I'm kind of with BJ on this one. I like it when you can find your where clause like that because most of the time when I'm editing queries, it's always like, oh yeah, but what if you did this? And it's like, oh, okay, where clause. And what about if all the account revenue is over 40,000? And you're like, okay, another stupid thing in the where clause. So you're always throwing new stuff in the where clause, at least from my point of view. I'm always throwing new stuff in there. So I like to know where the heck that is. And especially if Sometimes if the where clause is crazy, I'll have each piece of it like this, then drop a line and or
that's
you know,
exactly what I do. I have my and. So once I say where, it's just the one where, and then I break, and then every and has its own line. So I can just look right at it. The one thing that I still haven't made up my mind how I actually want to do it. So some of my code is very inconsistent, is when I have a lot of fields I'm selecting. When I first started, I was in the habit of breaking on comma. So literally I would have the select, indent, and then every field would just have its own line.
And it's massive.
Yeah, but then you get this really long thing, and it's like, oh, I don't think I like that. So I think there's a sweet spot for me when I start getting so many. I'll put 3 and 4 and 5 on a line, and then break 3, 4, and 5. But yeah, absolutely the from and the where and all of my ands and conditions all have their own lines.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I've seen queries that are really long that I can't see what the table name is, and I like those. Yeah. Like you have to scroll away from the screen to find.
Oh, because you have so many. You have so many fields.
So many fields. And in that case, I think the best thing would be break out the fields.
Yeah, break on like every 4 or 5
groups,
depending on the length.
Yeah.
So that question was from Master P14, who also has a follow-up question. Also, anything on class naming conventions when dealing with a large code base? So
we do have a lot on this, actually. So the ISV guys might have more on this.
Right.
And yeah, we do. You're going to want to kind of default to your namespace, but not
exactly what I was going to say.
Exactly your namespace. You can kind of see where I'm going with this logically.
And he doesn't mean your namespace in your org.
Yeah. So you have, for us, let's say I want to write a function, right? That sounds like so generic. It's like get number, right? Super generic. Or maybe a class with that function, right? I'm just going to do like MA get number for map anything. I'm going to do MA class name. So like maybe I have some silly class called wheel or something, MA wheel. So everything's MA. Now, if you have a project that it's very specific to, or essentially not a code base, but like an app that is very specific to, maybe you have a couple apps in there, but you have an app it's specific to, I might do something like MA, then my app name, like MA special app.
And if you're not an ISV partner, if you're not building code bases that are going into other people's org, but let's just say that you are the senior developer for your company who happens to be a customer for Salesforce.
Yeah.
And you've got a whole bunch of different pieces of software that work across the business for different purposes. And so for each of those, if you consider each one their own piece of separate piece of software, you might come up with a naming scheme kind of for each of them, where you have a namespace so that you know that your create accounts, whatever software process is always going to be CA and then a class name, CA and then a Visual Force page.
Yeah.
So that whenever you're searching through your code base later on, you can simply go to the global search function up at the top there with all the different letters and say, I know it's going to start with C, and everything that's CA is part of this piece of software.
Yep.
And so a lot of times that's kind of like how ISVs and a lot of other software vendors will
especially if you're working in a cloud-based IDE like or a cloud-based editor like Aside or something like that, it's a pain in the butt to run through it, and you're like, oh, what was that thing called? Get number. What was that stupid class? And you're like typing, and there's like maybe there's 40 of them, and you're like, oh no, like which one was it again? If you always start with the same thing, and like we were saying, maybe like your sort of namespacey kind of thing, like maybe you work for GE, maybe it's GE app name get number. It just makes searching and finding things so much easier. It makes connecting things. If you have a specific controller, you already know what that controller is called, and you're in the Visual Force page, you're like, oh, I named the Visual Force page the same stupid thing. Boom, boom.
Yep.
Teddy, what do you think?
I think good names are definitely predictable. So if you're using a namespace kind of string, then you want to get consistent with that to a point where if I'm a new developer learning your code, I can easily predict names.
Oh, that's a great point too. Yeah.
I've found that works great for me in the past. I've seen some really good naming schemes where I can predict what's going to be the name of something else that I need to look at.
Oh, absolutely. I can. Yeah.
Because then you don't have to ask somebody every single time. You're like, what was that list view thing called? Oh, MA list view.
Right.
There you go.
Well, it's the same with all your test classes. Your test classes, and this is a Salesforce standard. They have even come out and said they want you to name your test classes, whatever your class name is, test.
Yeah.
And that way, when you're looking through your code, you're like, this is my class. It goes, so create account class is going to be CA, create account. And then the next underneath that's going to be CA, create account test.
Yeah.
And that way you can always find everything.
I messed that one up. I always do test first. I use like test and then class, because then I scroll down and then all my tests are in one place. But
that works too, though. I mean, it's still the same idea.
Still
in the background, you're just
not like the sidebar on the setup menu for customized stuff. It has no alphabetization.
It doesn't.
Oh, that's crazy.
No, it drives me absolutely crazy when you go to customize and then you're like, I need to customize activities. Is it directly under accounts? No. It's under like
it's way
opportunities, which is above case number, which is like
I've never I guess I don't do that much stuff, but
it's my one thing. Salesforce, if you're listening,
they're not
alphabetize.
Please dot.
They're one of our 6. Like, oh yeah. Hey, Mark Benioff. What's up, man?
You watching tonight?
Hey, can you fix this for us, please? Thanks.
Oh man. All right. Do we have any more questions?
No, that was.
Yeah, just some weird stuff going on in the chat that doesn't have anything to do with us.
What is going on?
I don't know.
Oh, always delete System32. That should be like the very first thing whenever you install Windows is immediately go to the Windows folder and delete System32. No one uses it anyway. It just causes DLL errors.
Is that what's going on? Is somebody's in here trying to be...
It's like delete System32. It's a virus.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Oh, man.
Classic.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys again in a couple of weeks. Have a great night.
See ya.
Thank you.